All right, everyone, welcome to this bonus episode of Not a Strong Start. As many of you may know already, today James Gunn finally released the slate, or at least the first part of the slate for his 8 to 10 year plan. After keeping everyone on edge for the entire month and literally waiting until the last day to do it.
Yeah.
But today was revealed, and George and I, being big comic book fans and being fan of DC, also
Hmm.
Marvel, but we are a fan of DC. Thought we just kind of briefly touch on what was presented today and give our thoughts on it. Before we start, anything you want to say, George?
Uh, I'm I've been excited about this announcement, the prospect of this announcement for quite some time, honestly. I'm a huge fan of James Gunn, and unlike other people who are scared about his takeover, I'm thrilled personally.
I'm right there with you. I was ready for the old to just kind of die off. Don't get me wrong. Like I like Henry Cavill as Superman.
Yeah,
I did
agreed.
like Ben Affleck as Batman. But there's just so much negative energy with the DCEU, so much failure that you just need to cut our losses, kind of restart fresh. Because if you just continue, it's always going to be harping back to those failures, in my
Exactly.
opinion.
It's just a band-aid over time.
Exactly. So, with that, he's calling the first chapter of his slate Gods and Monsters, which is funny because there is an animated movie,
Yeah,
Gods and Monster, which I don't think he's going in that direction. I think he just thought it's a cool
yeah.
name to
It's a
like
nice
call
nod.
it.
I think it's a nice nod to that.
Yeah. Which shows, he knows his material.
Yeah.
As we will see by the slate, as James Gunn has been known to do, kind of delving into the unknown and kind of bringing that into the spotlight. Like he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, when people didn't know about Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah.
before it came out. And then now look at it, everyone knows Guardians of the Galaxy. So starting with that, in no particular order, there was 10 announced projects that are
And
going to come out.
scare and from scattered media at that too. It's not all just live action.
Yes, yep. So we're gonna get animated, which is weird because when they first did the WB Discovery merger, everyone was afraid because they started cutting all these animated series that it
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, they're gonna be anti-animation. So we're gonna get some animated, some live action, some movies, some TV shows. So it's a nice mix of everything with no. I think only Superman really had a release date time frame
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
Everything else is just kind of open. So this can change at any point. But let's start off with some of the known. There's going to be a Waller TV series, and it is going to have Viola Davis, so
Yep.
she is going to stay on as Waller. Personally, I'm happy. I like her as Amanda Waller. I feel she brings out that authority, that strength, and that don't mess with me attitude that
Oh,
comes with
for
Amanda
sure.
Waller.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this Waller TV show?
I'm curious of the direction that they're gonna go with it, since we know they'll dabble with the Peacemaker crowd and everything, with those characters or just that feel. But Peacemaker has such a comedic touch, well, granted, while still delving into a lot of serious tones for his background. But like she's just hardcore all the time. So I'm curious of what direction they're gonna go with on that. Will it continue that path, or will it have some little comedic tinges to it, which we know that he's very good at. But I like her. I like watching her in How to Get Away with Murder. So she is meant to play this role. This was
Oh
perfect
yeah.
for her. I'm excited to see what she does with it going further, considering it's always just been little 5 minute scenes in the movies or even a little bit of the TV show for Peacemaker. To see her get her own series, we know she can carry it. It's a no brainer, honestly.
Oh yeah. You can't have Viola on screen and not pay attention to Viola.
Yeah.
She is a beast when it comes to what she does. So I am happy again that they kept her. I am also curious where they're going to go with this. Is the series going to revolve again with the Suicide Squad and kind of seeing her handling on her end, or are they going to kind of leave the Suicide Squad out and kind of have her on different ventures. Are they gonna go and maybe introduce Lex because they've worked together in the
Yeah.
past, and that might be something they can do. So it leaves it open to it. Just for her, I am excited for this series because I don't think Viola Davis is going to shortchange us in any way.
Oh no, and especially after the Woman King success, and she got so physically fit. I think it'll be interesting to actually see her character in the field. Generally, within the books and even in whatever live action iterations there have been, you don't really see her doing too much. I think this would be a great opportunity to prove like why she's almost like the Nick Fury of this
Mhm.
world, you know. So I think that'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, see that there's a reason people fear her beyond just having a bomb in their head.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, moving on from that one, another one that was announced here was Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Now we had a Swamp Thing TV series, which I did enjoy. Unfortunately, it got cut short due
Yeah.
to budgetary reasons, and I guess there was some tax mix-up where they didn't get the tax breaks that they wanted to in the state that they were filming in, so they ended up cutting it short. But it was a really quality series. They had a good job of mixing in the horror elements. So I was disappointed by that. Hopefully, they go in a similar direction with this movie. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think again, having Gunn behind this, I think people forget that James Gunn came from the schlock horror film background, with Trauma, and then having him do movies like Slither and even Super. Like this guy understands horror and comic books far better than most do, being the fan he is. So I think he's gonna bring something very special to this character. Especially like Trauma brought us the Toxic Avenger and Swamp Thing and Man Thing, those things all kind of feel similar in some way, you know. So I think it's going to be interesting. Plus, this can give us a good promise of having a good Constantine character brought to live action. Maybe even bring back I forget his name, the guy from the TV show who still voices the animations. Phenomenal
Oh, yeah.
Constantine. I feel bad that I don't remember the actor's name, but I think some of the best representations of that character yet have been from that guy's face and voice. But
I agree. He
yeah,
was so popular when he did that that when the show got canceled, people begged for him to be put in anything else. They're like, put him in Arrow, put him in
yeah,
Lucifer, like
DC
put him in
Legends,
whatever you
everything.
can.
Yeah.
So, no, I agree with that, and I feel that's also a good transition into uh, one of the things the animated series they're going to put out is going to be the Creature Commandos on
Yeah.
there. So this is gonna be an
Yeah.
animated series. Very as soon as he said that, I'm like, this is so James Gunn.
Yeah.
Just seeing the characters is just pulling out obscure characters. I believe originally these characters from like World War II. They were like
Yeah.
a little like unit of like the misfit toys, the Forgottens. You have some connections to a Suicide Squad now. So I believe like Weasel is there, and he was in
Yeah.
a Suicide movie. I believe you have Flag's father is in the crew in the image there. You have Frankenstein in there,
Yep.
which you spoke about with Swamp Thing, maybe getting in some Constantine, maybe getting into eventually the Justice League Dark, get into that magic world.
Yeah.
And I know that like Frankenstein in the newer comics, he ran his crew, the Agents of Shade,
Yep.
which is kind of your black ops for like the dark magical world and all of that. So I think, like you said with Swamp Thing, this might open it up for that too.
Yeah. And this could be like their opportunity to have, when Wonder Woman came out, that was like their answer to Captain America, at least the first Wonder Woman movie. And in Marvel Comics, you had Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos. I actually always liked DC's version with this little monster squad because howling refers to a wolf, but this like actually has a werewolf in there. Like these are real howling commandos.
Yeah.
And I always liked this aspect of the monsters saving the world, but no one knew about it. They were fighting the true monsters, which in that time was the Nazis. But like I thought that was always a cool concept.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me about this is just a small worry is how much overlap are we gonna get in similarities between this and the Suicide Squad? Because
Yeah,
they're
for
both
sure.
units of misfits, not always good guys, kind of helping saving the world in the shadows, like you said, that people don't
Yeah,
know about it. So what's going to differentiate these two groups if we're going to continue with the Suicide Squad also? So that's something that I kind of had
yeah.
on my mind.
I think the big thing there will be the fact you said right there, Suicide Squad. The Task Force X has no choice, while these monsters, most of them are against the Nazi regime or whatever this evil thing is. They generally are on the side of good, or at least anti-hero-esque kind of characters. You know, the thing I'm interested in is actually he mentioned that the actors who voice these characters will also be utilized in live action. And so I'm
Yeah, and,
very curious
and
to see who these
possibly the
people are.
video games too.
Exactly. So that really sparked my interest right there, because that means, okay, whoever we're looking for someone who can do it all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think this integration they have planned with animated live action TV show, video games, possibly comics
Yeah,
to fill in some gaps in story. If it's pulled off, I think it could be really good in general because just imagine if you can fill in backstory with other mediums, um, how efficient like the movies can be. You don't have to waste
yeah,
time on some of these things. Be like, hey, just go read the comic. Which I mean, it's not a new concept, but I think if they mainstream it a little bit more, it can be really good.
yeah. I'm curious to see how he pulls that off.
And now you mentioned Wonder Woman, so I think it's a good spot to get into Paradise Lost.
Yeah,
So this is kind of like a prequel. So this predates Wonder Woman herself. Takes place, in the Amazonian's island. He's painting this as kind of like a Game of Thrones, possible civil war happening there. So I am a little intrigued, and I think that paints it different from some of the other stuff that we have here. So it looks like we're gonna have good variety and this adds to it. What are your thoughts on Paradise Lost?
yeah. Like I'm excited to see more of the mascara. We got lots of glimpses of it from the two movies for Wonder Woman, especially depending how far back we go. How much we delve in with maybe more of the gods and how they worked with them and some of the other like demigods and all that kind of stuff. There's great lore and mythology to build off of. And I'm always a fan of those kind of things. I love Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, all those kind of things. So if he can really dive into that, I think that'll make this show really big, honestly.
Which I think it will by the chapter title, Gods and Monsters.
Exactly.
This will probably cover the gods aspect of that. Uh, so again, I'm intrigued, and once he throws Game of Thrones style in there, I'm like,
Right?
okay, I like Game of Thrones. Let's try it out. Uh, Surprisingly, I read that Gal Gadot's a producer on this. So even though it
Okay.
predates her character and she's not in it, and they're unsure about her future in the character,
Yeah.
so like they've said for sure Henry Cavill's out, Ben Affleck's out, but she's still in the air. She's not officially out, but she's not officially in.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to read that she's producing on this. So we'll see what comes out of that.
Yeah. I can easily see it being, let's say, maybe it's a voiceover thing where like because in the movie she's a historian. So maybe she's just recounting the history of her homeland.
That could be true and that can work. And they can technically, even if they go younger with everyone, they can still keep Gal Gadot because she
Yeah,
is so old.
exactly.
So yeah. So we'll
Well,
see.
as Wonder Woman, not Gal
Yes.
herself.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. uh going into the next one. This one, I almost I imagined him saying it before he even said it. It felt almost automatic. And there's gonna be Booster Gold. Is
Oh
gonna
yeah,
be part of it.
yeah,
He didn't even start the slate, and my mind was already saying there's got to be Booster Gold, and there's going to be a Booster Gold, and I feel this character can really thrive under Gunn. Even if he doesn't direct or he doesn't write it, I feel it's the type of character that fits James Gunn's
oh yeah,
style.
yeah, for sure. It's actually too bad that this couldn't have happened a good 10 years earlier, so we could have had Nathan Fillion as this character because he's the guy. That's who should be playing this character, you know. But yeah, it's he's such a misfit hero who just doesn't have anything together. So I guess it's going to be cool, especially if they can introduce him and then later Blue Beetle, because we'll have the Blue Beetle movie coming out with the teenager, but the predecessor to that was the guy who had no powers, almost like a Batman like character who's had all this money and he was a science genius. Their chemistry together is always amazing. So if it can build towards that, oh man, it's gonna be so good.
Yeah, this one has me pretty excited around it. For some reason, I don't know if you ever saw it, but this actor popped in my head. Um, and he's, younger than Nathan Fillion, but uh, what was that movie with Bradley Cooper where he had the
Okay.
pills and it
Oh, I
made
know
him
what you're talking
smarter?
about. Yeah, that's the thing. I remember it. Limitless.
What is
It
it?
was Limitless.
Limitless.
And it's a
Remember they
TV
had
show, right?
the TV show. That
Yes.
actor who played Bradley Cooper's,
Yes.
he popped in my head right away. I'm like, he's got the charisma, he's got the look they can fit it. Um, so very obscure actor, but it popped in my head like I think he can make a good like Booster Gold.
I
I mean,
totally see that after what he did with Limitless. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
that's what
Actually, wasn't
sold it
he
for
in
me.
Greek also?
Was he?
I think so. I think he
Maybe.
was from the fraternity, like the preppy fraternity. I think he was
Yeah.
that same guy.
I've seen
So
him in a few things. That was the biggest thing that I saw him in, I think, and that sold it for me that he can play this character.
yeah, I like that.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. For this, let's go to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. In this one, we don't know if it's going to be the same Supergirl that they're using in the Flash, or if it's
mm,
going to be a different Supergirl. They didn't really get into details regarding that. I doubt it's going to be the one from the TV shows. I,
yeah,
I
yeah,
I know I saw her name floating around. Like I
yeah.
doubt it. I don't think they're going to go with that. But what are your thoughts on this project?
When he mentioned that it was Tom King's run
Mhm.
on it, that caught my interest because it's like, all right, we're referencing straight to an actual comic book story. And I remember like first, I'm always an artwork person first, so the art jumped out at me for that series. And I think that it'll be an interesting approach because this we both were not fans of the TV show, and I don't think I'm going to be a fan of whatever is going to be in the Flash movie. But if we're going to tackle actually her struggles with having to be from a planet that she experienced dying and losing her family, unlike Clark, who never really had to actually go through it the way she did, that's going to be a much better grounded take for this character. And we'll get to see like what she actually struggles with every day and having those powers. To have that much power and to have that kind of loss, you don't deal with life in the same way, in the same positive way that Clark Kent does, you know? So I think that's going to be really cool to see.
Exactly, I agree with you 100%. And then, if they're able to bring those two together, that contrast between them, both being Kryptonian, both having the same powers, but just the contrast in personality and how they view the world, I think can be like really dynamic on screen
Yeah,
together. So, also, I wouldn't say I'm overly excited for this one. I need to see more details,
for sure.
who's in it and things like that. But I got a good feeling about it. Um, uh, might as well transition into Superman, Superman
Yeah,
Legacy on here. So we know he's going to go with a younger Superman. That's the only reason Cavill is out
yeah,
on that aspect. I know the story that's being thrown out there is kind of All-Star Superman, as kind of pooling some of that to kind of incorporate within this. I am very curious on what we're going to do. I know a lot of people are going to hate it no matter what, just because it's not Henry Cavill, especially
yeah.
those that are obsessed with the Snyderverse. I think no matter what happens with it, they're going to hate it. But what are your thoughts on it?
I'm because of the fact that it's possibly tapping into All-Star Superman, I'm almost worried actually, just because like that's not a young Superman. That's a story of a Superman that's lived a full life, who's experienced everything the universe has to throw at him. Not and so that the title of Legacy, it's like that doesn't sound young. I'm curious
Mhm.
why they've mentioned going younger, but yet are painting it with the brush of something that's much more mature and
Yeah.
comes with years of wisdom. So that gives me some hesitance, but I'm always like I'm giving everyone a chance. You know what I mean? Like I've been a fan of the Superman franchises for quite a bit. I think he gets a bad rap, honestly, for being the Boy Scout and being unrelatable. But he's also possibly one of the most human characters that you get within out of all the Justice League. So I'm definitely curious. And All Star Superman is probably one of the best Superman stories by Grant Morrison. So if they can capture an ounce of that story, they could have a winner still.
Yeah, I know, and you bring up some good points. You know, Superman is one of the harder characters to adapt on screen. Part of it is part of the reason that you mentioned is being able to keep Superman interesting for the audience. Do one the Boy Scout reputation in there, which then Snyder like went complete 180, and he
Yeah.
was like, let's just give him teenage angst for the beginning of it, just to try to make him interesting. And that was, for me at least at first, the wrong direction to go with Superman, because he's supposed to be positive and happy and this like beacon. But then if you go too much in that direction, I feel it loses some of the interest for the general broad audience. And then you also have to pit him up against something that's gonna match his power level, or at least make it seem like, okay, I can see him struggling with this. Because I mean, at least I mean, me personally, I don't like a hero not struggling at all.
Yeah.
If all he does is win, 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 no matter what. You saw what I did there.
uh,
and he, yeah, and he takes no L. There's no stakes. You lose interest because there's no peril, and so it's hard to give Superman stakes without going big. But then you probably don't want to go big right away. So
yeah.
that's the tricky part, I think, with Superman, which has me wary but hopeful for the new one.
Yeah, for sure. If that's how you feel, also don't read the current Superman run.
Or the new Action comics that came
Yeah.
out.
Superman is very overpowered now.
Yeah. I mean, in a comic, I don't mind it as much as in a movie. In the movie, when I'm watching a movie or a
Yeah.
TV show, I'm sure because with the comics, I'll get to the point where he's gonna struggle. So I don't mind a little period of OP because it's gonna come. But if you have it for a movie or a TV show where it's just unstoppable, and then you can never guarantee there's gonna be a sequel or there's gonna be another season,
Yeah.
and then you never get to see that struggle if it doesn't get there. So, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, Curious but hopeful with Superman. Let's see, what else do we have here? One
Oh,
which I think it's gonna be the dark horse.
yeah.
I think is gonna be the one that might end up uh being the best of the slate, the Authority.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the Authority. I feel again, obscure characters with the Authority. But for those listeners, to simplify as much as possible, if you're not aware of them, the Authority, think of like the boys. They're like DC's kind of version there. They're
Yeah.
these group of heroes that will uh they'll do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yeah. I think it was like
So
almost like a dark Justice League, but in the sense
yes,
like you just said, getting shit done at
yeah,
all
that
costs.
exactly. If that means killing, that means killing. They will do anything at all costs. So that you got that aspect of the boys, not the commercialized they're all like a-holes part of it. It's the we'll do whatever it takes regardless of the consequence. Their moral code when it comes to that,
Yeah.
isn't there. They're not like Batman or Superman, who have like their limits. There's no
Yeah.
limits for these guys.
Even though they do have
um
their own versions of a Batman and Superman.
Yeah. So ones that people might be familiar with, more popular from the group, would be your Midnighter, in there. Apollo
Yeah.
is part of them. I know they recently kind of did a new version of the Authority and teamed them up with Superman.
Yeah.
And they kept Midnighter and Apollo, but everyone else changed. I think they threw in Enchantress, they threw in Olmec, they threw in
Yeah. Kind of switched it up a bit.
Manchester Black and all that stuff. So it's not like the original where it's like you got Midnighter, Apollo, and then a bunch of names that most people won't remember
Yeah.
uh, in there. But I think the reason why I think this might be the dark horse of surprise, I feel with this show, they can give us something that Marvel is not gonna give us. They could give us that rated R superhero movie that doesn't give a shit in
Yeah.
this. That's something being under Disney that I don't think Marvel will give us. I mean, you saw what they did with Moon Knight, and they basically cut out everything to Disneyfy it. So that's why I think this might be a dark horse for DC. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And just you bringing that up is why I feel James Gunn is home. I think he's right where he belongs. And by not being with Marvel and being with DC, DC's always been darker than Marvel. It's, at least for the longer part of its career. And this is where he's going to thrive, is by pushing that envelope, being able to just like go R-rated. And this comic book actually started off with Wildstorm, which was an imprint run by Jim Lee, and the writer was Warren Ellis, right? Yeah, I feel pretty confident about that. It's
Yes.
Warren Ellis. And
Yep.
Warren Ellis doesn't make things for children. All right. Despite the fact that it's in comic books and you think of comic books, think of children, this was not a child's book. All right. This was for adults. Adult things happen. And I think it's going to be also tackling some good social commentary and social constructs that this book tackled in its run. Plus, we have with Midnighter and Apollo, they're a gay superhero team. Like the two of them, I think they eventually got married in the books, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But
And
like,
Midnighter's a badass too.
yeah, like, but their relationship is a big part of their everything else they do. I think that'll be really good in the sense like it's not necessarily this check mark that they're hitting like how Marvel's been doing. Marvel's been changing characters to just fit a bill for certain things. This was written into their storyline. This is a part of who they are, and I think that's going to show maybe everyone else how it's done, hopefully, if they do it right.
I agree. This one probably has me the most excited because of the potential they could come out of
Yeah.
it, and maybe some of these characters might end up, you know, they might be going from C list to A list if it's done right, and kind of becoming household names. So, ooh, I'm pumped for that one.
Yeah. It's definitely not one I think I did not expect him to say it. When it was said, I was like, oh, what? I was caught off guard by surprise.
Yeah. And then I think the last one left. I had to leave it for last because it's one of my
Yeah.
favorite characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be Batman, the Brave and the Bold. Although I am a little wary about this one. Uh, I've got some good thoughts and I got some bad thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got some good thoughts because it is going to be having Damian Wayne,
Singular.
singular, just one Wayne, um, who I like. I
Yeah.
think at first it was a little rough, but I think the character he's been written away. He's kind of getting into his own, especially over the last year or two. You're kind of seeing him be more independent of Batman in general. So I do like that. I also like because also one of my other favorite DC characters is Nightwing. So if Damian is Robin, that means Nightwing already exists. So that
Hmm.
opens up the door of us getting Nightwing, which has been getting, people have been pushing for years. And for some reason, they can't get a Nightwing off the ground, even though he's so important to DC
Yeah.
as a character. And one of the characters that's grown the most from inception till now. That is pure growth from a character. It's not like Superman, who's always been Superman
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, in there. So that's what has me excited about that, and it's Batman. So I'm automatically going to have excitement over Batman. What has me a little wary is it's called The Brave and the Bold, and The Brave and the Bold tends to be the cheesier, more bubblegum series, very tongue in cheek, not quite Adam West Batman, but not
But
too
close.
far off of
Yeah.
that and all that. And I'm not a fan of the Brave and the Bold Batman. I feel that's geared more towards kids, younger audience, not for me. And with Batman, the Batman being on Elseworld and being dark, I feel they might try to make it contrast that Batman so much that we might get a bubblegum Batman. And you can't have that, especially if you're having Assassin Damien
Yeah.
as part of the
Yeah.
crew. Like, so that's how I feel about that one. What are your thoughts?
I 100% thought the exact same things because when I think of Brave and the Bold, I think of the comic books and I think of the cartoon series. Both were very much popcorn friendly. You know what I mean? And I think when it comes to Damien, Damien comes from a family like Raja Ghul's freaking grandson. This is a kid who was born a killer. He's raised by killers. He's that's all he like, how he's concerned. True justice, kill that guy. That's true justice, you know. And I too loved like for me, my favorite Damian Wayne stories are Batman and Robin, Grant Morrison's run when it was him and Dick Grayson as Batman. I love that so much. And like honestly, that's how Damian Wayne was raised to know what good was through Dick Grayson. So like I'm I'd be great if they have him with Bruce for a little bit and then Bruce dies and then bring in Dick to fill in the role of Batman and then he shows him the way. I think that'd be amazing. And then they could still have that bubbliness that they want to have from Brave and the Bold because Dick is funny. Like he throws out jokes, he has quips. He's almost like Peter Parker at times with how he'll make fun of a situation because he's a little more lighthearted, or at least a lot more lighthearted than Bruce Wayne is. Bruce Wayne is no jokes, you know, and that'd be a much better contrast to have with Damian as opposed to these two brooding characters butting heads with each other, of father and son and everything. And plus, it's like how you're gonna have comedy come out of that, really.
Hmm.
I think this is how that can have a better approach. Have him still be a killer. Like you can have James Gunn. James Gunn knows dark comedy. You can have him like play it like Super with Rainn Wilson, where like there's lots of laughs in there and there's some wholesomeness too. You think about it. And so you can have that while still being super dark. But there is that question. Will they just do the polar opposite of the Batman and just be cheesy
Yeah.
as hell? And
I mean, I
it
hope
scares
that.
me.
I know he mentioned that it's actually that Grant Morrison run that they're looking into for this,
Yeah.
which, like you mentioned, is going to be big. So I don't know. They're probably gonna just do something similar, but with Batman, unless what they're keeping on the wraps is like we're actually not going to start off with Bruce Wayne Batman. What if when the movie comes out, it's actually Grayson Batman with Damian and Bruce is out of the picture temporarily and he ends up coming afterwards, maybe in the sequel or in something
Mm.
else. That's the other thing that maybe they're gonna surprise us. Because if Damian's already there, he's like 10, 11 years old. Nightwing, he's gonna be Nightwing. That
Yeah.
means you can't do a young Bruce.
Oh no. Yeah. For
So this
sure.
Bruce, yeah. So this Bruce is probably gonna have to already be like minimum, maybe late 30s, early 40s, like at this point.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't start off with Bruce.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing saying that. I'm just throwing that out there. But I really hope they don't mess
Yeah.
that up. They don't mess up the Batman. Don't turn it into like Thor Ragnarok, where it's just like bad joke after bad joke and just
Yeah.
not being serious.
We already got Batman and Robin with the Batman credit card. We don't need to have that happen again.
Exactly. Uh, but with that, I mean, that's everything that was announced so far. I'm sure with time, more things will get announced. Some things will get more solidified dates for them. Things will probably get moved around, probably depending on reception. With like, we know the Flash is supposed to be the reset point,
Yep, which he
and then
stated.
like, yep, and then the Superman Legacy is supposed to be the legit start of of the new DCEU. So with all that said, what are your overall thoughts on what was presented?
I mean, I think it's gonna be. I think it's good. It's a good time for a fresh start, and I think everyone should have an open mind for what James Gunn has to offer. honestly. Especially like he hasn't failed us yet. You know, he had like I haven't seen a bad project from James Gunn at this point. So until the guy fails, then we can start talking.
No, I agree. I am all on board for James Gunn being on here. And everyone should be on board for James Gunn here because you have a creative in charge of this.
Yeah.
This isn't a businessman, a CEO who's never read a comic or anything like that. Like you have an actual creative, a creative who knows these characters. And he's a character writer.
Yep.
He knows how to bring out the best in these characters, how to write towards their strengths, and how to make characters that people don't care about, don't know, never heard of, entertaining. So these are things that I think we need to hold on to. And like you said, give him a chance, wait for him to fail. I just feel right now there's too many people that want him to fail just so they can say, you see, we should have stuck with Snyder.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they
And
all hate watch it.
yeah.
Give us the views.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, of course, as these projects come out, we'll hit you guys with some reviews, some hit it or quit it, some opinion ours as we go through. Let's hope for the best. I want a strong MCU and I want a strong DCEU, because we all win if we have it.
Damn
So
straight.
we shouldn't be hoping for any of these to fail. So with that, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been your host for today, Jose. You can find me at This Is Mi Nombre on Instagram.
And I am George. You can follow me at Nicolopoulos on Instagram. And of
All right.
course, you can always follow us at Not a Strong Start, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, hit some notifications. Why? Because Jose said so.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have notifications, you would know right away when an episode like this drops. And we're gonna be dropping more bonus episodes as things go forward. On top of our regular shows that we have now, our Tuesday show and Marie's Wednesday show. With that, this is Not a Strong Start, signing out.